This is a really interesting deadline, again, because of the lack of superstars. I'll ask you this question, Danny. Who do you think is the most impactful player that seems likely right now to change teams at the deadline, or at least like there's a 50-50 shot that he changes teams at the deadline?
I'm not sure it's 50-50, but I've loved Myles Turner forever. And Turner as a pending unrestricted free agent, like there's the question about has he conveyed to the Pacers about his willingness to resign. The Pacers can do a renegotiation and extension with Turner, so they could give him more. So they should have a pretty good idea of whether he
Can
wants to.
you actually explain that for people so that they
Yes,
understand like the fact that they can move his salary up this year and pay him very, very real dollars that he actually can't get elsewhere necessarily?
sure. So typically, a player's salary for a given year is set in stone. And so whether that's 10 million, 20 million, whatever. However, certain contracts can be extended and or renegotiated, and a renegotiation can only push the contract up. It's not like the NFL where you can restructure or anything like that. And so what the Pacers can do, they have a bunch of cap space still into the season. They could use most of that cap space to raise Turner's salary this year, and then they can build an extension off of that. Now that could be you raise it all the way up into the 30s, and then you give him 30 million a year. But you could also do what the Sixers did years ago with Robert Covington, which is you give him a big bump and then you actually reduce from there. So kind of works. It's not this, but it functions kind of like a balloon payment. So you pay him a lot right now, and then maybe here's an extra $20 million. Enjoy that, Myles Turner, 15-20, and then we'll build an extension off of that. But you count the total new money. You say to him, hey, we're giving you X amount right now. We'll kind of count that into the extension and just structure it differently. And for Turner, he gets the money right away. And for the Pacers, you typically exchange that for a more reasonable salary in future years when Tyrese Halliburton will eventually be on a new deal and everything else.
So that's actually like a really important structural difference and advantage that the Pacers have here within these negotiations. Now, it is worth noting that about a week ago, our good friend Matt Moore over at Action Network, we love Action Network, please, by all means, go support them. Matt reported that multiple sources indicated this week that if a deal isn't reached, it would finally prompt the Pacers to move on and deal Turner. Now, there have been other reports that have said that Myles Turner has rebuffed Indiana's extension offers to this point. That means there is like seemingly a real chance that Myles Turner could be on the move. I don't know. Like if I was the Pacers, I'd be trying to get an extension done with him. I think given how good they've looked this year and given the fact that they have these inherent advantages structurally on his deal that they can utilize.
Well, that's why Kevin Pritchard and the Pacers are in such a good position, is because they can negotiate with basically good faith and say, this is what we can do. And if he's not willing, if Myles Turner is not willing to accept that, then you can say, we did our best and now we have to do something else. And so the team acquiring Turner does not have the ability to renegotiate and extend, but they will have full bird rights. And that is in effect beyond Myles Turner's services for this year. What you get is the ability to re-sign him after this year. And whatever terms that is, we'll have to see. And part of the reason why Turner is so valuable is that he is a wonderful rim protector. He has been a very good defensive player throughout his career who can also credibly space the floor. Turner is also drawing free throws more than he has early in his career, and he's fitting well with a very good point guard in Tyrese Halliburton. So it's very different than the case for Fred VanVleet, but there is a similarity because players like Myles Turner are not available too often. And even though bigs aren't necessarily in the closing five like perimeter players are if they're good enough, Turner brings some of the skills to the table that he could help even a really good team.
I think that's dead on. Now, here's the question. What team should actually give up a substantial amount for Myles Turner?
I would like to see the New Orleans Pelicans put in their resources for a better player, so for a larger overall. I don't think we really heard about them in the KD sweepstakes, but New Orleans has this unbelievable cache of assets if David Griffin's willing to go into it with these Lakers picks and everything else. But The fit of Turner and Zion Williamson together, I think, is wonderful. And like, it's funny that some of the sales pitch, oh, Valanciunas is willing to take threes. Well, Myles Turner's actually good at it, and he's a much, much better defender. Now, Turner's not switchable, so if you want, or super switchable, so if you want that concept, and you would of course help a team like the Lakers, and then you would have two capable rim protectors with him and Anthony Davis together. So you could go in those directions. I mean, honestly, Myles Turner, unless a team has the center position completely solved, I think he could help almost everybody.
I think that's dead on. I will say I don't know if the Pelicans are the team that really should make that move, just given that I kind of love the lineups where they just kind of fucking bludgeon teams.
Sure.
like I kind of like that Valanciunas like lineup. I like the fact that they're versatile in terms of roster construction with Larry Nance. I think that I guess that what I would say is I think that there are different ways they could use their assets from an opportunity cost perspective. As much as it's a nice fever dream for Myles Turner to be next to, Zion Williamson, but I wonder if there are better ways to utilize their assets, I guess.
There potentially are. There's also a big benefit for the Pelicans in just waiting, just seeing how this season works out. And while I am not the biggest believer in Valanciunas as a playoff player, get to see how it goes. And then the other problem with making a lower scale move for Turner when you consider relative to their assets is they don't know where the Lakers pick is going to go. Maybe, I don't think that gets into the Wembanyama space, but who knows? And you also then lose those assets unless Myles Turner is awesome. You lose that in the pursuit of something even bigger. And that's part of what makes New Orleans situation so different. And it's really unfortunate. Some of the teams that I think intellectually Myles Turner is such a great fit on, like, for example, the Dallas Mavericks, they just don't have the resources like that. Yeah, Myles Turner in Dallas would be awesome. I think he would be a really good fit, give them a continued defensive identity, but they can't make it happen. There are a number of different teams in that mold as well.
The team that I wonder about a little bit in terms of what they're going to do is the Memphis Grizzlies.
Sure.
If you paired Turner and Jaren Jackson, Jaren Jackson we're in agreement that Jaren Jackson's like very clearly the defensive player of the year so far, right?
If you consider this sample sufficient, yes, he is. He has been that player. I'm still, we're like 550 minutes. That's still a little bit small for me, but based on how he's played, sure.
Yeah, I mean, like they were a team just outside of, I think, the top 10 in defense when he was out, and they are now number 1 in defense in the NBA, not just in the minutes that he plays and not just like since he's been back. For the full season, they've been so good with Jaren Jackson defensively that they are the number 1 defense in the NBA. So if you paired Myles Turner and Jaren Jackson, you can still play 5 out with John Morant, with Jaren Jackson, with all of these guys that can space the floor, and then you really just double down defensively. That's kind of a situation where I wonder if that makes a little bit of sense.
Sam, you want a wild one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oklahoma City. I think they're not going to do it because they want to see what happens with their draft pick this year. But a Turner Holmgren combination, if he's willing to re-sign there, then you mitigate a lot of the risk that you might feel about Chet Holmgren as a 5. And if Chet Holmgren as a 5 works, then you figure it out later on.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just wonder if Turner is not willing to sign an extension with Indy. I mean, he's probably not going to be willing to sign, he's going to want to test the market, I guess.
But, and Sam Presti, you of course, this is done with the presumption that you figured that out. Like you're not going to trade for him blind. Like that's not the way this is going to work. It's going to be more like we brought up Gary Trent Jr. earlier, the Trent Jr. Norman Powell trade a couple of years ago, where the Blazers knew what Norman Powell's number was and they were willing to pay it. So that makes a Myles Turner trade so much more fascinating, because he has a voice in this process too, as a pending unrestricted free agent. If he doesn't want to go to a place, he can't scare them off of making an offer, but he can weaken their offer sufficiently that it won't be the best.
You and I talked at length last year about the Golden State Warriors for Myles Turner.
Sure.
I mean, we don't think that'll actually happen, right?
I don't think so. I mean, the Warriors do have resources to make it happen, but the other big problem there is, are they willing to pay Myles Turner in addition to everybody else? And it isn't even as much a James Wiseman issue, which we thought it might be before. It's just if the idea of keeping Myles Turner is that you're going to continue to be good. So that means Draymond, you're basically in your mind committing to paying Draymond Green his next contract, Klay Thompson his. They already got Andrew Wiggins locked up, and so that's a lot. And Myles Turner helps them. You could also make an argument that Myles Turner is not a part of the Warriors' best five. So are you going to give up the treasure it takes to bring in a player who's not that guy? It's hard to know.
Is there a better asset that the Pacers could get for an expiring Myles Turner than Moses Moody?
Yeah, Moses Moody. Yeah, they could do better. They could get somebody who they're more confident in as a starter. I mean, I think Jonathan Kuminga is potentially. I don't know if the Warriors would give him up, but
that's kind of what I'm wondering. Yeah, would they actually give him up? The reason I ask this is because you could theoretically structure a deal for Myles Turner around Moses Moody and James Wiseman, and you could make a decision at the end of the year on what you want to do with Myles Turner. Did it work or not? And that actually like really allows them, following the Jordan Poole extension, if they want to let Myles Turner go and they've gotten rid of the James Wiseman contract, that gets them right around the salary level they're at right now. So that's actually be much less because you'd be taking Moses Moody's number off as well. So I wonder if that would be attractive to the Warriors on some level, like just taking care of their salary cap situation now while also having Myles Turner for the rest of the year, like almost treating it purely as a rental to try and win a title again.
It's an interesting idea.